It usually starts the same way. You rinse a pan, the water hesitates for 1 second too long, and then the sink turns into a shallow, greasy pond. You wait. It gets worse. You run the faucet again. Now it's backing up. And in that moment, every homeowner has the same thought. How is something this small about to cost me money? Then you see the claim. A $1 liquid. Any clog. Forever. No plumber. No expensive chemicals. And honestly, it sounds fake. Because it is fake. At least the way it's sold. There is no magic liquid that kills every clog forever. But here's where it gets interesting. There is a cheap liquid that can make certain clogs seem like they vanished by magic. Not all clogs. Not deep mainline blockages. Not roots. Not solid obstructions. But the most common slow kitchen drain problem, the greasy, sticky buildup that narrows a pipe little by little until the sink starts acting haunted? For that, the answer is often sitting beside the sponge. Ordinary dish soap helped by hot water. And the real story is better than the clickbait, because once you understand why it works, you also understand exactly when it won't. That matters, because most people don't lose money on plumbing from one giant disaster. They lose it in small, stupid steps. A slow drain ignored for weeks. A random bottle of harsh cleaner poured in out of frustration. A second bottle because the first one didn't work. Then the call to a plumber anyway. And now there's corrosive liquid sitting in the line when someone has to put hands or tools into that pipe. That's why the real secret isn't a miracle product. It's knowing what kind of clog you actually have before you declare war on it. And this is the part most people miss. A clog is not one thing. Grease behaves differently from hair. Hair behaves differently from soap scum. Soap scum behaves differently from food sludge. And a blockage near the trap under the sink is a completely different problem from a stoppage deeper in the line. That's why one person swears by a home trick and another says it did absolutely nothing. They were not fighting the same enemy. So the real mystery isn't whether a cheap liquid can work. It can. The mystery is why a trick that feels almost too simple sometimes beats products engineered to sound industrial. And once you trace that answer back through old chemistry, ancient sanitation, and the physics of what actually coats a pipe, the title starts to flip. It's not that plumbers want this knowledge gone. It's that bad versions of this knowledge spread faster than the truth. Long before branded drain gels and aggressive warning labels, humans were already fighting the same problem. How do you move waste and grime away from daily life before it starts fighting back? Ancient cities learned quickly that civilization is only as advanced as what happens after the water disappears down a hole. The Romans understood this on a massive scale. Their Cloaca Maxima, one of the great sewer systems of the ancient world, carried away waste, drained standing water, and helped keep an enormous city functioning. It moved so much water that ancient writers described it almost like a river under the streets. In other words, the battle against blockage and buildup is not modern at all. It is one of the oldest maintenance problems in urban history. But the story gets even older when you follow the cleaning side of it. More than 2,000 years ago, people had already discovered that fats and ashes could create a substance with unusual power over grime. According to historical accounts summarized by Britannica, early soap-making traditions used animal fats and plant ashes, with the Phoenicians and Celts among the cultures associated with early soap production. The crucial ingredient hiding in those ashes was alkali. That is the chemical key that changed fat from just another slippery mess into something that could help remove oily dirt. At first, that knowledge was practical before it was scientific. People knew certain mixtures cleaned better. They did not yet have the language of molecules, surfactants, or saponification. That came much later. Around the late 18th and early 19th centuries, soap production began shifting from craft to industry, and chemists like Michel-Eugène Chevreul helped explain what was really happening. He showed that fat could be split into glycerin and the alkali salts of fatty acids. In simple terms, soap was no longer folklore. It had a mechanism. And once a cleaning trick has a mechanism, it stops being magic and starts becoming a tool. This is where things change, because the same broad family of chemistry that helped humans wash greasy hands and cookware also shaped the products later sold to attack drain clogs. Some modern cleaners use far harsher chemistry than ordinary soap, but the problem they target is familiar. Oily, organic matter that sticks, thickens, traps more debris, and narrows flow. In a strange way, the viral $1 liquid claim is piggybacking on a very old truth. Humans have been using chemistry against grease for centuries. The lie is not that chemistry helps. The lie is that one cheap trick erases every possible clog forever. To understand why dish soap can help, picture what's happening inside a kitchen drain after weeks of normal life. Tiny amounts of cooking oil, pan drippings, butter, sauce, and food residue don't always leave cleanly. Some cool against the inner wall of the pipe. Then more sticks to that. Then particles that should have washed through get caught in the sticky layer. Over time, the pipe doesn't become blocked all at once. It gets narrower, flow slows down, water lingers. And eventually one more rinse pushes it from annoying to clogged. Dish soap is effective against that kind of problem because it is a degreaser. Its molecules have a split personality. One end is attracted to water, the other is attracted to oil and grease. That lets soap surround greasy material and break it into tiny suspended droplets that can be carried away instead of clinging to a surface. Add heat, and now you have a second advantage. Warm or hot water softens grease and helps it move. So when a mild grease clog is near the sink and still soft enough to be mobilized, soap plus hot water can absolutely improve flow. That part is real, but the real reason this trick sometimes feels dramatic is psychological as much as chemical. People tend to try it when the drain is slow, not fully dead. The clog is often partial, and partial clogs are exactly where a surfactant and heat can make a visible difference. Water that used to sit now drains. The sink clears. It feels like a miracle, but a miracle is not the same thing as a universal solution. Because here's the catch. Soap does not dissolve hair the way people imagine. It does not magically vaporize a solid obstruction. It does not remove a toy, a dense wad of food, hardened scale, tree roots, or a blockage deep in the main sewer line. In bathroom drains, where hair and soap scum dominate, the dish soap trick usually underperforms. Even in kitchen drains, experts warn it can backfire if softened grease simply slides farther down the line and resolidifies in a colder section. So the same method that saves you one afternoon can set up a worse problem later if you treat it like a cure-all. And this is exactly why the phrase, forever, should set off alarms. No clog is solved forever if the cause keeps returning. If grease keeps entering the drain, grease will keep building. If hair keeps entering the drain, hair will keep catching debris. The best any liquid can do is remove or reduce the current buildup. Permanent prevention comes from changing what goes down the pipe, not from finding a magical bottle. So if cheap soap and hot water can work on light grease clogs, why do modern drain cleaners even exist? Because they are built for speed, strength, and broader effect. According to Consumer Reports, common chemical drain cleaners fall into major categories like caustic and oxidizing products. Caustic cleaners often use ingredients such as sodium hydroxide, also known as lye, and they are especially effective on grease and organic matter. Oxidizing cleaners use chemicals that generate gas and heat while attacking organic material like hair and food. These products can work fast, sometimes in well under an hour, but the speed comes with trade-offs, and this is where the story usually gets oversimplified online. It is not quite true that every chemical cleaner instantly destroys all pipes. It is also not true that they are harmless just because they're sold in stores. Used as directed in properly installed plumbing, some can be used without immediate damage, but they are hazardous to skin, eyes, and lungs, and they create heat. Consumer Reports notes that heat from chemical reactions can be a concern, especially with certain materials and off-code flexible drain pipes. The CDC is even more blunt about sodium hydroxide itself. When it dissolves in water, it generates a great deal of heat. That is not marketing language. That is chemistry. This is the part that fuels the plumbers hate it myth, but not in the way people think. Plumbers are not secretly terrified of dish soap. What many professionals actually dislike is when homeowners pour increasingly harsh chemicals into a problem they have not identified. Now the clog is still there, the chemicals may still be there, and mechanical removal becomes more dangerous. That is one reason mechanical methods like plungers and drain snakes are often recommended first, especially when the blockage is near the trap or clearly caused by hair or debris that can be physically removed. Then there are enzyme-based cleaners, which sit in a completely different lane. These are slower, much slower. They are not the dramatic before and after solution people click on when a sink is already backed up, but they matter because they target organic buildup more gently and can be useful as maintenance, especially in systems where repeated harsh chemistry is a bad idea. Consumer Reports describes bioenzymatic products as safer for pipes, though less fast-acting and often less effective at dissolving severe clogs. In other words, modern drain cleaning is really 3 separate strategies pretending to be one market: quick chemical attack, slow biological maintenance, and physical removal. And this is why the $1 liquid remains appealing. Cost, accessibility, simplicity. You probably already own it. A bottle of dish soap feels safer than a skull and crossbones chemistry set. For a light kitchen slowdown caused by grease, that instinct is not irrational, but the real comparison is not soap versus plumbers. It's diagnosis versus guessing. The cheaper method wins only when you correctly identify the problem. So what is the realistic, non-clickbait version of this method? If you have a kitchen sink that is draining slowly, not fully blocked, and you strongly suspect grease buildup, dish soap can be a reasonable first move. A small amount of soap allowed to sit briefly, followed by very warm or hot water, poured slowly, may help loosen and carry away light grease residue. Southern Living's expert plumber guidance specifically frames this as a mild option for minor grease-related clogs, not for serious stoppages. But there are limits, and the limits are the whole story. If the problem is in a bathroom sink or shower where hair is likely involved, soap is usually not the hero. If multiple drains are backing up at once, that points away from a simple local clog and towards something deeper. If the sink is completely blocked, standing full, or repeatedly returning to the same issue, a mechanical tool or a plumber makes more sense than another experiment. And if harsh chemicals have already gone down the line, that changes the safety equation immediately. There is also a quiet prevention lesson here that saves more money than any viral hack. The cheapest liquid is often not the one you pour after the clog forms. It's the hot water you use regularly to reduce grease accumulation, paired with the habit of not sending fats and oils down the drain in the first place. Because the real trap with grease is that it looks harmless when warm and liquid, then it cools somewhere you can't see. That is how expensive problems begin, invisible, one pan at a time. And one more thing needs to be said clearly. The internet loves the baking soda and vinegar version of this story because fizz looks like proof. But fizz is not the same as force. The dramatic reaction often creates the impression that something powerful must be happening deep in the drain, when in reality, the chemistry can be brief and limited. That's why so many people swear by it after a minor slowdown, and so many others call it useless. Again, same lesson, different clogs, different outcomes. The pipe doesn't care what trend is popular. So does a $1 liquid kill any clog forever? No, that sentence is built like bait, but hidden inside the exaggeration is a useful truth. A cheap, ordinary liquid really can solve one of the most common household drain problems when the problem is mild grease buildup near the sink. That liquid is not exotic. It is not forbidden knowledge. It is just dish soap doing what soap has been helping humans do for centuries. Grab onto grease and help water carry it away. The reason this matters is bigger than one clogged sink. Once you understand the mechanism, you stop falling for fake universals. You stop treating every blockage like the same beast. You stop confusing a maintenance trick with a permanent cure. And that tiny shift in understanding is what separates practical knowledge from internet folklore. In the end, plumbers do not have a secret enemy in a $1 bottle. Bad diagnosis is the real enemy. Grease needs one response. Hair needs another. Deep line problems need something else entirely. The smartest fix is not the strongest or the most dramatic. It's the one that matches reality. And that may be the most satisfying part of this whole story. The truth is less magical than the title, but far more useful. Because once you know why a simple liquid works, you also know when to trust it, when to avoid it, and when to stop pouring things down the drain and deal with the actual problem. If you enjoy learning practical knowledge that most people overlook, consider subscribing.